In one of my last videos, someone asked about the compatibility of Opengrid and Multiboard with Gridfinity. So here are my thoughts. The short answer is that both systems are compatible. For both Opengrid and Multiboard, you can print shelves that hold Gridfinity bins. My personal go-to solution is actually the set of bins and shelves designed by David, the creator of Opengrid. These attach to either Multiboard or Opengrid using the dovetail-like connectors Multi-Connect. Keep in mind that they are not the same. The version for Multiboard works only for Multiboard and the version for Opengrid only for Opengrid, since the spacings are different. That said, these shelves come in a variety of sizes, they are pretty easy to print, and they are quite strong. So for me, this is the most practical solution for Gridfinity with either of these systems. But what about native compatibility? Are either of these systems truly native to Gridfinity? I would say no. David argues that Opengrid is more compatible because it uses a 28mm grid, and if you multiply 28 by 3 you get 84, and 84 is exactly 2 Gridfinity units. So in that sense, yes, Opengrid has kind of a theoretical or mathematical compatibility advantage, and maybe aesthetically this looks better. However, in practice, I think this doesn't matter that much. With this shelf design I use, you still have the 42mm of Gridfinity itself, but then you also have about 1.5mm on each side for the structure of the shelf itself. That means you can't place two of these units directly side by side in Opengrid without losing some space. And when you look at Multiboard, you run into similar issues. For certain widths, it works reasonably well. So for instance, if you print a 4-unit Gridfinity shelf, it almost takes up 7 Multiboard units. Which means you can place two of these next to each other with only a small gap. But with other sizes, like 5-unit shelf, it starts to overhang to the edge of the next Multiboard unit. At that point you either can't place another one directly besides it or you end up with a bigger gap. Now, to David's credit, Opengrid does have a real potential advantage here, in theory. It should be possible to get perfect alignment and place an unlimited number of Gridfinity units side by side and always aligned to the 3rd unit of Opengrid. But only if someone comes up with a design that doesn't use lateral support on the top of the shelf. There are some attempts at that kind of solution. For example, if you go back to the Multiboard official site, the official solution lets you create this long continuous Gridfinity shelves. But this design, personally, I would never print that and I would never trust it. It looks to me that all the weight is hanging from a very small and flimsy cleat, and that just feels like a recipe for disaster. I would want some kind of support underneath it, and that's really the issue. I haven't found a proper solution like that for either Multiboard or Opengrid. So in the end, both systems are compatible with Gridfinity, and is one more compatible than the other? On theory, yes, Opengrid, but in practice, I would say it doesn't really matter. And if you really want a very, very large shelf, like 2-meter long Gridfinity setup on your Multiboard or Opengrid, honestly, you might be better off just building something out of plywood and mounting this to Gridfinity or Multiboard with some sort of solution, instead of trying to print a 2-meter shelf. So those are my thoughts. I wouldn't use Gridfinity compatibility as the deciding factor when choosing between Opengrid or Multiboard.